18,000-odd spectators stood to watch as pole setter Larry Perkins led them over the hill and down to the green light. The order through Champion and round the S's and Castrol corner was Perkins, Fury, Percy, Crosby, Grice, Vagent, Brock. At the hairpin, Grice had taken Cros and Brock was already looking for a way past the skyline. Over the hill for the second time, but it's Perkins, Fury, Percy, Grice, Crosby, and a battle behind between Brock, Vagent and Anderson. But it seemed already that Perkins was in no mood to be challenged. The Jag was there, but certainly not causing Perkins or Fury any great concern. This was a Commodore versus Skyline battle. Third time over the hill saw Perkins fractionally further ahead and obviously determined to dictate a tough initial pace, designed to see just how fast the Skyline could race. Perkins' new Commodore needed 2 fuel stops, while Fury's Skyline could make it on 1, so he was keen to pull what gap he could as soon as possible. And while the front 2 were engaged in their battle, behind them Percy had the Jag well established in third, with Grice content to run at what he thought the overall pace would be. Brock and Crosby were also settling down in 5th and 6th places. By lap 5, the clear divisions were beginning to develop within the upper echelon. Brock and Crosby ran close at the back of the quickest group. Of the field of 40 starters, there were already 3 retirements. By now it was obvious that Perkins could sustain his quick pace and that Fury couldn't get by him, as many had predicted. The Commodore could match the Turbo's pace. Further back, Crosby was falling off Brock's pace in 6th place. Crosby had chosen a hard tyre compound which was forcing him to run slower than Brock. But the ebullient Aucklander was gambling on the greater durability of those tyres and desperately trying to stay in touch with the 05 Commodore as he watched it fall further away in front of him. Settled down to a pace that could theoretically be maintained, the pit board showed times for the top of the order were in the 68 to 69 second bracket, a good 4 seconds down on qualifying. There was no doubt by now that tyre wear was going to be more severe than expected, and most of the front runners were going to need an extra pit stop. One of the earliest pit's visitors was an unscheduled stop from the Crichton Soper Sierra. The stop was efficient, but much too early to give them confidence for a good result. By this time, Perkins was contending with traffic, still under the incessant gaze of George Fury, who got closer with the help of some lapped might forecast his arrival. Narrow circuit. When Percy thought the headlights might forecast his arrival on the traffic and aid his passage through, since he was already down on time, having stopped for a puncture. Brock was also making some advantage with the traffic, having closed on Grice, whose Commodore sounded off song and a bit lumpy. Meanwhile, Tony Longhurst failed to slip cleanly under the Sorensen-Musgrove BMW at Champion Curve, which could have cost him his race. Perhaps it was safer that one of them was momentarily sidelined. Race order was now Perkins from Fury, from Brock, from Percy, from Crosby. But the disputes for cornering lines hadn't finished, and moments later Kent Bagent was in the pit showing the scars of a nose-to-tail with John Harvey at the hairpin. A quick inspection showed the skyline could continue, but there was ill feeling between the two over the damage to both cars. Harvey pitted moments later, and some brute force was needed to make the air jacks return in the rear of the 03 Commodore when Harvey had handed over to Lowe and fuel and tyres were replenished. But the dealer team weren't the only ones pitting early. Grice had been forced to come in with a slow puncture, and while he was handing over to Graham Cameron, the crew fitted a harder compound in an effort to stem the excessive wear. Otherwise, Grice seemed quite happy with the condition of the car.
Fairly early for the changeover. Is that earlier than you expected?
Yeah, it was. I got a puncture in the front left. Simple as that.
What's the circuit like out there? Fairly abrasive, is it?
Yes, it is. It's starting to get quite a lot of oil come up out of it. It's quite oily and slippery. In fact, we've changed the compound now and gone to another compound that we reckon will handle oil a little better.
Having a fairly long sort of a battle there with Peter Brock,
yeah,
running fairly close together. That an indication of how quick it's going to go later on?
I would think so. It's a motor race, and that's what we came here for.
You happy with the way the car's running?
Yeah, it's fine. It is. There's nothing wrong with the motor car. It's unfortunate. I had a flat for probably the last 4 or 5 laps, and I was just watching it to see. It obviously wasn't a quick one. It obviously didn't just let go. It's obviously just a very light flat, but it was slowly getting worse. So safe side to come in because all the dangerous corners here are right-handers, and it was a front left that was punctured.
Bagent was still running with the damaged skyline, and pit stops were beginning to change the order of the top 10 substantially. If the Commodores were having tyre wear problems, it was a safe bet that the big Jag would also be in need of fresh rubber. When Percy handed over to Armin Hanna, and the Jag was back out in 4th place. And as Hanna left, Perkins' crew were ready for an efficient, fast, scheduled stop, hoping they'd only lose 1 place in the process. As Perkins got out and belted Denny Hulme in, it seemed even the neighbouring Jaguar crew were willing to help clear their path, where television crews were just an unwanted distraction. Only a matter of minutes before both Crosby and Brock would have to refuel. refuel and retire. Just as Hana in the Jag was settling into second position, Crosby decided to come in and wondered if his initial tyre choice was correct. Correct. Team manager Ross Stone calmly supervised the changeover, but also wondered at Cros's initial tyre choice, as co-driver Wayne Wilkinson waited to join the fray on his home circuit.
Well, we were 6 when you come in.
Step, because Jimmy...
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Cross, you happy with your pace out there?
Not really. I went for a planned, real hard tyres, and I knew I wasn't going to be with it right at the start, but I expected them to have a bit more tyre trouble than what they have already. In hindsight, we should have run a hard compound on the left-hand side, which gets all the work, and a softer one on the inside.
Well, it doesn't look like anybody's going to get to their scheduled pit stops with the tyres that they're running anyway. Pretty abrasive out there, is it?
Well, we've done ours.
Other than you, with fitting hard tyres.
Yeah, it's pretty hard out there. You know, you go round and round and round. You see guys disappearing in the distance, and you've got to say to yourself, well, let them go, because they're going to come in. Let them go, and then you think, are they going to come in or not? It's a bit of a worry there for a while.
How's the car?
It's going real good. We're running reasonably high oil temperature, which was expected, about the 125. But earlier on in the week we were running sort of 135, so we pulled it back about 10 degrees, and the water temperature's pretty cool, so we're okay.
Track slippery?
Oh, as the coiner Dick Johnson praised, busier than a one-handed paper hanger.
Back on the track, the crowd watched the order change with interest as the odd few cars fell by the wayside. Steve Willey was escorted back to the pits as his Timbercorp Corolla was left parked trackside, retired. Meanwhile, at the head of the field, Denny Holm was once again keeping the Commodore ahead of the skyline, this time with Glenn Seaton at the wheel. Armin Hana had stepped up the pace in the Jag and was closing on Holm and Seaton in third place. If only it wasn't such a heavy British beast, he might be able to close even more before the big brakes ate up the tyres. The O'Brien-McIntyre BMW was in 7th place, running well. The Slaco Tulloch Rover was languishing down in 15th place. And Wayne Wilkinson had the Crosby Commodore back up to 5th place. Denny Holm still had the lead and was lapping with the perfect consistency of a total pro. While Graham Cameron was under pressure from dealer team 05 car in 3rd place. And pressure had just been relieved for Denny Holm as the Fury Seaton Skyline had been down pit road once again and re-emerged sounding sick. Next time past the pits, Holm got the message and knew he had lost the most worrisome challenger. Now, well past halfway, the race order was Holm, Hana, Seaton, Wilkinson and Soper.
Here at the Nissan Mobil 500 series around the pits, the equipment is getting more and more high-tech as Group A becomes more and more professional. One or two of the local competitors are heading off as teams to the World Touring Car Champs and will be touring around Europe very shortly. To do that, they're going to need a place to work on the cars as well as a place to store them and transport them. So why not combine the two? One person who's done exactly that is Neville Crichton. Let's have a word to the man who's put all this rig together, Ray Stone. Ray, what have been some of the problems in putting together this multi-purpose vehicle?
Well, time mostly, Tony. Now, what we need, of course, particularly for Australia and Europe, is a vehicle that's capable of travelling long distances, Sydney to Perth, 1,200 miles, take 3-4 mechanics, 2 cars, and still work as a workshop as well. One of the problems, of course, is storage, which is tyres, engines, transmissions, the cars themselves, and all the paraphernalia. One of the problems, of course, is storage, which is tyres, engines, transmissions, the cars themselves, and all the paraphernalia that goes with a race team of that size. So the problems have been, I guess, similar to a caravan or a boat, where you're very limited in space, but you want to fit the maximum amount of equipment into it.
How many things have you been able to combine with a dual purpose, like, for example, the runners for the vehicle?
Well, we use the runners. This section here lifts out. You'll see it's missing now. It lifts out and becomes a bench in our pits, or a bench in the annex where we're working outside in bad weather. Comes back in and there's a ramp for this car to service on. We've used a lot of multi-purpose things such as that serve a purpose either in the vehicle whilst travelling or outside. We've used, I don't know whether you can see from the camera here, but in that door there, because you can't store things behind a door, we've used the door itself as a cabinet to take race overalls, things like that. We've put a small refrigerator unit in the corner there to keep cool drinks for the drivers, somewhere to wash your hands, store a little bit of food. But the point I make is that we don't live in the transporter. I try to get the mechanics away from the job when they're finished. They work long enough hours, and I really don't believe in combining a unit such as this with cars and people.
But you still need a fair amount of storage space, not only for spare engines, spare parts for the car, and also, of course, a great number of tyres.
Yes, tyres are a problem. We'll come back to them later, because tyres take an enormous amount of space. But as regards all the spare parts, we put them in cabinets here, which are lockable, slide out. All your transmission, engine parts, electrical bits and pieces, and all the stuff that's needed is all there, locked in. It's all in inventory. We know where it is. We have bigger boxes here for the heavy gear, like the air guns and the air jacks, all fit in there. It's a bit untidy at the moment because we're in the middle of a race meeting, but that all packs away and is tied in. And you'll see the sort of strapping that we use on the side of the truck, which ties everything back when we're travelling, just to make sure it's secure.
What about the vehicle itself? What things are important in the vehicle itself, like suspension, for example?
Right, well, the trailer unit has got a special air suspension so that it rides very smoothly, because, you know, again, it's a lot of miles and there's a lot of expensive equipment in here, so we want the thing to ride as smoothly as we can, so we go to an air suspension. The rest of it, well, the whole rig is 17 metres long. It'll all up loaded about 28, 29 tonne probably. It's a V8 twin turbo Ford truck, and we want something that'll cruise comfortably, not tire the drivers, because they're the same drivers that are going to come in here and work on our cars. They're the mechanics, of course. Just something that'll be a comfortable long-distance rig.
With about an hour to go, the race order was Hulme, Hana, Seaton, Wilkinson, Moffat, Crichton. But the hot pace, hot weather and subsequent hot track surface had taken their toll. Kent Bagent, having survived an earlier shunt, was sidelined and somewhat dehydrated as he began the long trek back to the pits. And not far behind him was the Grice Cameron Commodore with a terminal dose of the smoky blues. There were by this stage only 23 of the 40 starters still running, and only 3 of them able to lap inside 69 seconds. Machinery and drivers were understandably hot and tired. Crosby was just ahead of Hana on the track, but 2 laps down on the Jag overall. Hana was second, Crosby fourth. By now the crews were crossing their fingers as they counted the final laps down. Hulme was about to hand over the lead car back to Perkins. Crosby and Hana were still locked in their incidental battle, and the The Brock Commodore looked good for third. It looked as though Mideki and Hall could coax the Sierra to its first ever finish in 9th place. The last pit stops for a top-up of fuel were being completed, some successful, some not. The Riley-Smith Celica had been all too frequent in the pits, as the Toyota team struggled to develop it as a reliable race car. Celica had been all too frequent in the pits, as the Toyota team struggled to develop it as a reliable race car. And by now, tyre adhesion and driver concentration were both falling away. The race leader's final pit stop was imminent as their race continued exactly to plan. The NZ Commodore's crew had selected a pit away from the main bunch and operated almost unnoticed all day.
As far as I'm concerned, I started driving the XJS with Tom, and I occasionally turned up at Spa for him. Every time he went to Spa, a 24-hour race, I'd go along as a spare driver for them. That was 82, 83, 84. I got involved in the full ETC championship, and I ran my own car alongside Tom's in that championship for him. So it goes the history of my driving with the Jaguar. It goes back a long way. Since 84, it's just been the odd race. We went to Bathurst 2 years ago, as you know. Fuji the end of last year, and now here with the cars.
And what kind of a race car is it?
It's fairly heavy. It's about 1,400 kilos or over that. So it's hard to drive sometimes. I've done not a lot of races in it because I've done more rover races for Tom Walkinshaw than Jaguar. This is my 4th race actually, but I've won Bathurst in it, so that was very good for me, indeed.
We could perhaps talk about the brakes. What kind of brakes are you using?
Well, they're massive, great twin pots, you can imagine, big ventilated discs, the S11 pads most of the time. The brakes, we don't run any servo-assisted brakes or anything, so the physical effort of the car, nor do we run power steering. So it's quite a demanding car. Hence, we've got cool suits here for this weather, just to keep the driver a bit cooler.
Just now, I'm very pleased that I'm in a Jag because I'm a German, and it's a big honor for me to be in the last race in a Jaguar. So just for this race, I wouldn't like to sit in any other car. I would like to sit in that.
I've enjoyed my years with it, especially we won Spa 24-hour race with Tom and Hans Heyer in 84. That was probably the highlight as far as I'm concerned. But it's been a very exciting part of my racing career, and as Armin says, it's kind of a little bit of a privilege just to be here for the last race and look after the car. Hopefully we'll take a complete car back to England, and it's going to be tough to win a museum.
All that remained now was for the front runners to hold their lap times and hope the cars would hang together. The field was down to 21 from the original 40. Larry Perkins had in fact been consistently quickest right from the early practice sessions. The car had handled beautifully and never missed a beat, and he now led the Jag by half a lap. Third, fourth and fifth places were all held by Commodores, but they were all 2 laps down on Perkins and Percy. Rather than lose concentration by letting the pace slide, Perkins stayed on his own race pace and knew by now he had it won. Percy was closing, but not quickly enough. settled for third place, 2 laps down on his former teammate. Crosby was ruining his initial choice of slow but durable rubber in 4th place. And the rest of the field could battle out the final lap or so for the minor money. In a classy field studded with professional and semi-professional teams, this was a refreshing effort by the NZ Commodore crew. Perkins had come to Wellington a week earlier, confident of success after extensive testing in Australia, only to have his co-driver destroy their chances by hitting a wall. In the intervening week, Denny Hulme had become available when his Jaguar only to have his co-driver destroy their chances by hitting a wall. In the intervening week, Denny Hulme had become available when his Jaguar drive fell through, and not surprisingly, Perkins snapped up the man recognised as the smoothest peddler in the business. The two of them immediately became outside favourites, though not many punters picked them outright. In the Friday unofficial practice session, it was obvious the car was set up well, and by halfway through Saturday, they were a smiling camp. Only Perkins himself was unsurprised at his pole position, and by race morning he was convinced he was the man to beat. Even midway through the race there were knockers predicting a breakdown, but in the words of Denny Hulme, the car sat straight, the gauges never flickered, the crew never put a foot wrong. How could they lose? The Holden dealer team had revelled in their orchestrated 1-2 finish at Wellington, and it must have been satisfying for Perkins, a former member of that team, to be able to dominate a major race with his own car and team, and by now he was on his last lap. The clerk of the course had confirmed the 500-kilometre duration, and the checkered flag came out for Larry Perkins to begin his well-earned victory lap. The Jag a few hundred metres behind in 2nd place. The Brock Moffat Commodore, the Crosby Wilkinson Commodore and the Harvey Lowe Commodore will finish 3rd, 4th and 5th, all of them 2 laps down on Perkins and Percy. The first man there to greet Larry Perkins is the car's owner, Colin Giltrap, along with the whole NZ crew. With you, congratulations, well done.
Thank you very much.
I bet you didn't expect that one.
Well, I did. I mean, my team and the NZ Commodore, I said yesterday, it's the quickest Commodore in the world. Well, you know, we got the pole, we got the race, so I'm absolutely delighted there.
I bet that is a big occasion for you. The biggest win in a long while, I think.
Well, it is for us, our new team, this NZ team. We've only done 5 races, and to end up with a pole position and a win, we're over the moon, really are. We had a very quick learning curve, and we're delighted.
At what stage did you think you were confident of winning?
Well, I can say it now, but after yesterday's practice. But, you know, racing still is all about mechanical problems and everything, but we pride ourselves on our mechanical expertise, and all the boys did the job that they know they can do, and it all come good, and I'm delighted.
We'll drag the young fellow over here that's been co-driving with you. Denny Hulme, well done, congratulations.
Thanks, Tony.
I bet that was a nicer car to be in than a Jaguar today.
It was in a way, although I'm very pleased my 2 English mates, or English and German mates, finished second. I was really thrilled for them.
they've come a long way, and it's the last to see the Jag. They were disappointed didn't win, but it's better if Larry and I and NZ and the Commodore and Colin Giltrap.
Was it a little easier on the body?
Yes, it's not quite a handful as the Jaguar, but it's a lovely motor car. Be back in the Commodore. I've done the full round now.
Does it give you some pride to be in a Commodore that's a privateer entry beating the Holden dealer team Commodores?
Oh, not so much beating the Holden dealer team, but Larry's always been a good peddler and a good run a good team, and why not? A couple of old Formula One Hardys here, and we're away together.
It was fairly late notice with you getting the drive. How pleased were you when it came along? Otherwise you'd have been sidelined.
I would have been sidelined, and that would have been, for me, disappointment, but to pick it up with Larry was really champion. And I couldn't have picked a better team if I'd tried. If you'd gone through the entry list here, I think this is it.
Larry and Denny, well done. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And congratulations on second place along with Win Percy. Was that difficult out there today in the heat?
Yeah, it was quite hot in the car because this car is inside is very hot. But we had one problem because I had one puncture on the front right side because I flat spotted the tire down there because Gry's engine blew up and I was up on the oil, just unfortunate. The front right side because I flat spotted the tire down there because Gry's engine blew up and I was up on the oil, just unfortunately. And when I came back on normal road, it just blocked. And after 5 laps, this tire blew up, so we had to do one more pit stop. Otherwise, it would have been close.
Other than that, you seem to be getting through tyres at an extraordinary rate.
No, not this time really, because we had not a lot of problems in the race this time with the tires. Those tires were good, and they lasted those laps we wanted to do, which was 60, 65 laps. There was no problem.
Was it getting a little slippery out there on the circuit?
Yeah, sometimes there was some oil and some grass down there because some went straight on. But last year I had one off down there because there was grass on the track. So this year I was careful.
Considering it all, you're happy with second place?
Yeah, it was not too bad really, but second place is just second and not first. So next time we try better, but not in the Jag, in something else.
So you say fond memories with the Jaguar?
Yeah, sure.
And O'Brien and McIntyre's 8th place will win McIntyre the New Zealand Touring Car Championship. The official results show complete dominance once again for the Holden Commodores. 5 of the top 10 cars and 4 of the top 5. The up to 2.5 litre class was won by Giddings and Stewart in the Nissan Silvia, 11th overall. And Barrow and Lester in the incredible Corolla have won the 1600 class, 14th overall.